The divorce papers were still warm when 36-year-old billionaire Owen Case heard his 8-year-old son Tommy speak his first word in 3 years. But it wasn't daddy or mommy, it was the name of their 28-year-old black housekeeper, Elena. Owen stood frozen in the marble hallway of his Manhattan penthouse, the legal documents still clutched in his trembling hands. His wife Victoria had just walked out with her suitcases and her new lover, his former business partner, Marcus Webb. The $50 million divorce settlement felt like pocket change compared to the devastation in his chest. But it was Tommy's voice that shattered him completely. Elena ... The little boy whispered, his voice barely audible but crystal clear. He was standing at the top of the spiral staircase, his small fingers wrapped around the golden railings, looking down at the woman who had been quietly cleaning their home for the past 6 months. Elena Rodriguez paused in her dusting, her dark eyes lifting to meet the child's gaze. She wore her usual simple black uniform, her curly hair pulled back in a neat bun, but there was something different about her expression. Something that looked like understanding. Owen felt his legs give way. He sank into the nearest chair, the divorce papers scattered across the Italian marble floor. Tommy hadn't spoken since the accident 3 years ago, the car crash that had left him with a severe stutter so painful that he'd simply stopped trying to communicate altogether. Dozens of speech therapists, child psychologists, and specialists had failed to reach him. But now his son was speaking to the housekeeper. Elena set down her cleaning supplies and walked slowly toward the stairs. "Hola, Tommy," she said softly, her accent gentle and musical. "Como estás hoy?" "Elena," Tommy repeated, this time louder. He began walking down the stairs with more confidence than Owen had seen in months. "Elena, Mama is gone." "I know, Mio," Elena replied, opening her arms as Tommy reached the bottom. "But your papa is still here. And you still have your voice." As Tommy melted into Elena's embrace, Owen realized that his world wasn't ending. It was beginning again. 6 months earlier, Owen Case had built K-Stack from a college dorm room into a $4.2 billion empire. At 36, he owned a Manhattan penthouse, 7 luxury cars, and had more zeros in his bank account than most people could count. But his marriage was crumbling. His son hadn't spoken in years, and Owen was drowning in success that felt hollow. "We need to talk," Victoria had said that morning, her designer heels clicking against marble as she paced their living room. At 34, she still graced magazine covers, but her beauty had turned cold. "About what?" Owen asked, though he already knew. The separate bedrooms, the late nights, the way she flinched when he tried to touch her hand. "About this charade we call a marriage." Victoria's voice was sharp. "About the fact that you care more about your company than your family. About the fact that our son hasn't said a word in 3 years and you've given up." Owen felt familiar guilt twist in his stomach. "Tommy has the best specialists money can buy. Dr. Morrison says what you pay him to say," Victoria interrupted. "When was the last time you actually spent time with Tommy? Real time, not just throwing money at the problem?" That afternoon, Victoria dropped the final bombshell. "I'm in love with someone else. Marcus and I have been seeing each other for 8 months. Marcus Webb, his business partner, his friend, the man who had helped him build K-Stack from nothing. The betrayal cut deeper than any financial loss. What about Tommy?" Owen managed to ask. Victoria's expression softened slightly. "Maybe this will force you to finally step up." That evening, as Victoria packed her designer life away, Owen sat in Tommy's room and truly looked at his son for the first time in months. The boy was building with Lego blocks in perfect silence, his bright blue eyes holding depths of sadness no child should carry. "Tommy," Owen said gently, sitting beside his son, "Mama is going away for a while." Tommy didn't look up, but his small hands paused before continuing their work. "But I'm still here," Owen continued, his voice breaking. "I'm not going anywhere, son, I promise." Tommy remained silent, unreachable behind walls Owen didn't know how to break down. That's when Elena Rodriguez knocked on the bedroom door. "Excuse me, Mr. Case," she said softly. She'd been working for them for 6 months, punctual, thorough, invisible. "I wanted to ask about my schedule. With Mrs. Case leaving ... Owen looked at her properly for the first time. Elena was perhaps 28, with warm brown skin and kind eyes that seemed to see everything. There was something about her presence that felt different from the parade of nannies and specialists, who had cycled through their home. "Keep the same schedule," Owen said, suddenly realizing he didn't want to lose the one constant in Tommy's rapidly changing world. "Actually, could you come daily? Tommy's going to need stability." Elena's eyes moved to Tommy, who was still building silently. For just a moment, Owen could have sworn he saw the boy glance up at her. "Of course, Mr. Case," Elena said. "I'll take good care of the house, and Tommy." As she turned to leave, Owen called out, "Elena? How did you know his name?" She smiled, the first real smile Owen had seen in his house in months. "He told me, Senor. Children always tell me their names, even when they don't use their voices." That night, Owen wondered if Elena was the first person who truly saw his son. He had no idea she was about to save them both. Elena Rodriguez had seen enough broken children to recognize the signs. At 28, she'd been working as a housekeeper for wealthy New York families for 6 years, ever since arriving from her small Guatemalan village. She'd cleaned homes where children were raised by nannies, where parents threw money at problems instead of love. But Tommy Case was different. Behind his silence, Elena could see a bright, curious mind trapped by trauma and fear. She recognized it because she'd lived it herself. Elena had been 7 when the earthquake destroyed her village. She'd been pulled from rubble after 3 days, unable to speak for months. Her grandmother, who understood wounded hearts, had coaxed Elena's voice back into the world. Looking at Tommy's careful Lego constructions and the way he arranged books by color, Elena saw a child trying to create order in a chaotic world. "Hola, Tommy," she said softly on her first day alone in the penthouse. Owen had left early, his face drawn with exhaustion. "I'm going to clean your room now. Is that okay?" Tommy didn't respond verbally, but he gathered his Legos and moved to his reading corner, giving her silent permission. Elena began cleaning with deliberate care, narrating her actions in Spanish. "I'm dusting your bookshelf now. You have so many books, you must be very smart. ¿Te gustan los libros?" Tommy's hands paused in their sorting, and Elena caught him listening. "My abuela used to tell me stories," Elena continued, switching to English. "She said stories have magic. They can take you anywhere, even when you can't leave your room." This time, Tommy looked up. Elena pretended not to notice, filing the reaction away as progress. Over the following weeks, Elena developed a routine. She would arrive each morning after Owen left, spending her first hour in Tommy's room, cleaning and telling stories, sometimes in Spanish, sometimes English, always with the same gentle cadence that had once helped her find her voice. "There was once a little prince," Elena said one morning as she folded clothes, "who lived in a castle in the clouds. But the prince had forgotten how to use his voice because he was scared that if he spoke, the clouds might disappear." Tommy stopped building and turned toward her, his blue eyes curious. The prince tried everything to remember how to speak. He wrote letters, drew pictures, even tried to sing without words. But nothing worked. Tommy set down his blocks completely, giving Elena his full attention. Then one day a kind woman came to clean the castle. She wasn't a princess or queen, just a woman who knew how to listen. And when she began to sing while she worked, something magical happened. Elena began humming a soft Spanish lullaby, the same one her grandmother had sung after the earthquake. The melody was simple, comforting, filled with love that transcends language. Tommy stood up slowly and walked toward Elena, his small face filled with wonder. The prince remembered that his voice wasn't just for speaking, Elena whispered. It was for sharing his heart, and when he felt safe enough to share his heart. She paused, looking directly into Tommy's eyes. "Elena," Tommy whispered, his voice clear and strong. "Elena, I like your stories." Elena felt tears spring to her eyes but kept her voice steady. "I like telling them to you, Mio. Can you tell me more?" Tommy asked, words coming easier now, as if a dam had burst. "About the prince? Did he learn to speak again?" "He did," Elena said softly, "because he found someone who helped him feel safe. Someone who showed him that his voice was a gift, not something to fear." Tommy nodded seriously. "I was scared my voice would make Mama more sad." Elena's heart broke for this little boy carrying such a heavy burden. "Tommy, your voice could never make anyone sad. Your voice is beautiful, and it's yours. Don't ever hide it again." That afternoon, when Owen returned from another exhausting day, he found Tommy and Elena in the kitchen. Tommy was helping prepare dinner, chattering away in English and the Spanish words Elena was teaching him. Owen stood in the doorway, watching his silent, wounded son laughing and talking animatedly. When Tommy spotted him, the boy ran over with more energy than Owen had seen in years. "Papa, Elena taught me how to make empanadas. And she told me a story about a prince who found his voice." Owen looked over Tommy's head to meet Elena's eyes. She was watching them both with joy and something else, something that made Owen's chest feel tight in a way that had nothing to do with sadness. "Tell me about it," Owen managed, kneeling to Tommy's level. As Tommy launched into an animated retelling, Owen realized this remarkable woman had given him back his son. But more than that, she'd given him back hope. That night, after Tommy was asleep, Owen found Elena in the kitchen finishing cleanup. "Elena," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I don't know how to thank you." She turned to face him, her dark eyes serious. "You don't need to thank me, Mr. Case. Tommy just needed someone to listen to his heart." "How did you know? How did you know what he needed when specialists couldn't help him?" Elena was quiet for a long moment, deciding whether to share something personal. "When I was Tommy's age," she said finally, "I survived an earthquake that destroyed my village. I couldn't speak for months. My grandmother didn't try to fix me with therapy. She just loved me until I felt safe enough to find my voice again." Owen felt something shift inside his chest, a recognition, a connection he hadn't expected. "Elena, Tommy is going to be okay," Elena interrupted gently. "He's strong like his father. He just needed to remember that it's safe to let people hear him." As Elena gathered her things to leave, Owen watched her move through his home with quiet grace and realized that somewhere in the process of saving his son, she had begun to save him too. In the weeks following Tommy's breakthrough, the Case penthouse transformed from a monument to wealth into something that felt like home. Tommy's laughter echoed through rooms that had been silent for years, and Owen found himself rushing home each day just to hear his son's voice. But it wasn't just Tommy who was changing. Owen was discovering aspects of himself he'd forgotten existed. "Papa, Elena says you work too much," Tommy announced one evening as they sat down for dinner, actual family dinners, another new development. Owen glanced at Elena, who was setting dishes on the table with quiet efficiency. She'd gradually transitioned from housekeeper to something indefinable but essential, part caregiver, part family friend, part miracle worker. "Does she?" Owen asked, raising an eyebrow. "And what else does Elena say?" Tommy giggled, a sound that still made Owen's heart skip. "She says money can't buy happiness, but good food and good stories can make any day better." Elena blushed slightly. "Tommy, that's not exactly." "She's right," Owen interrupted, surprising them both. He'd been working 16-hour days since Marcus's betrayal, but sitting here, watching his son's animated face, Owen couldn't remember why any of that had seemed more important than this. "Can Elena eat with us?" Tommy asked, looking between his father and the woman who had become the most important person in his world. "She always eats in the kitchen, but that seems lonely." Owen looked at Elena, noting how she maintained professional boundaries even as she'd become family to them both. "Elena, would you join us, please?" Elena hesitated, considering propriety, class differences, potential complications. But Tommy's hopeful expression melted her resolve. "If you're sure it's appropriate, Mr. Case." "Owen," he corrected gently. "Call me Owen, and yes, it's necessary." As Elena took a real seat at their table, Owen noticed details that had been invisible when she was just the housekeeper. The way she listened with complete attention when Tommy spoke. The intelligence in her dark eyes when she asked thoughtful questions about Owen's work. The graceful way her hands moved when she gestured while telling stories. "Elena went to university," Tommy announced proudly. "She studied literature and languages. She speaks 5 languages." Owen paused with his fork halfway to his mouth. 5 languages? Elena looked uncomfortable with the attention. "It's not unusual where I come from. Spanish, English, Portuguese, French, and Quechua. That's my grandmother's language." "Quechua?" Owen asked, genuinely curious. "It's a Mayan language," Elena explained. "My grandmother insisted I learn it to stay connected to our ancestors. She said languages are bridges between worlds." Owen found himself leaning forward, fascinated. "And you studied literature?" Elena nodded, her eyes growing distant. "At Universidad de San Carlos in Guatemala City, I was working on my master's degree when ... She glanced at Tommy. "When what?" Owen pressed gently. "When my father got sick, Elena finished quietly. I came to New York to work and send money home. I thought it would be temporary. The revelation hit Owen like a physical blow. Elena wasn't just a housekeeper, she was an educated woman who had sacrificed her dreams to care for her family. Your father, Owen asked carefully, is he? He passed 2 years ago, Elena said simply. But by then I had to stay. My mother, my younger siblings, they depend on what I send home. Tommy, sensing sadness in Elena's voice, reached over and patted her hand. I'm sorry about your papa, Elena, but I'm glad you stayed. You saved me. Elena's eyes filled with tears, and she squeezed Tommy's small hand. You saved me too, Mio. Owen watched this exchange and felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been locked away since Victoria's betrayal. Maybe longer. Elena wasn't just caring for Tommy out of professional duty. She loved his son, truly loved him, in a way that was pure and selfless and real. And Owen was falling in love with her. The realization should have terrified him. Elena worked for him. She was younger. She came from a completely different world. But watching her with Tommy, seeing how she brought light and laughter and healing into their broken family, Owen couldn't bring himself to care about any complications. After dinner, as Elena helped Tommy with homework and Owen pretended to read while actually watching them both, Tommy made an announcement that changed everything. Elena, you should live with us, Tommy said with 8-year-old logic. Then you wouldn't have to travel so far every day, and we could have more time for stories. Elena looked flustered. Tommy, that wouldn't be appropriate. I have my own apartment, and... But you could have your own room here, Tommy continued, warming to his theme. The guest room is really big, and it has its own bathroom, and you could see the park from the window. Owen found himself holding his breath, waiting for Elena's response. The rational part of his mind knew it would be complicated. What would people think? How would they explain it? What were the implications? But the rest of him, the part that had been empty for so long, desperately wanted her to say yes. Tommy, Elena said gently, your father might not think that's a good idea. Tommy turned his bright blue eyes to Owen with absolute confidence that his father would make everything right. Papa, can Elena live with us, please? Owen looked at Elena, seeing the careful hope she was trying to hide behind professional composure. He thought about his empty house, about Tommy's laughter, about the way Elena had brought their family back to life. Elena, Owen said slowly, what would you need to make that work? Elena's eyes widened. Owen, I couldn't. It would be too complicated, too ... Too what? Owen asked. Too wonderful? Too exactly what this family needs? The silence stretched between them, full of possibility and fear and hope. Think about it, Owen said finally. For Tommy's sake. But even as he said it, Owen knew it wasn't just for Tommy anymore. It was for all of them, for the family they were becoming, despite all the reasons it shouldn't work. Elena moved into the penthouse on a Saturday in October. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a box of books, the sum total of her New York possessions. Owen had transformed the guest room overnight, adding a reading chair by the window, a bookshelf filled with classics in English and Spanish, and fresh flowers on the nightstand. Do you like it? Tommy asked anxiously. Papa wanted to make sure you had everything you needed. Elena looked at Owen, who was hovering uncertainly in the doorway. It's perfect. Thank you. The first few weeks established a new rhythm. Elena maintained professional boundaries during the day, but evenings became family time with shared dinners, homework help, and bedtime stories. Owen began working reasonable hours, arriving home by 6 most evenings. He said it was because Tommy needed routine, but Elena caught him watching them both with an expression that made her pulse quicken. Elena, Tommy said one evening as she tucked him into bed, are you going to stay with us forever? The question hit Elena like a physical blow. What do you mean, Mio? I mean, are you going to live here always? Or will you leave like Mama did? Elena's heart broke for this boy who had experienced too much loss. Tommy, I'm not going anywhere, I promise. But what if you fall in love and get married? Then you'd have to leave, right? Elena smoothed Tommy's hair, choosing her words carefully. Sometimes when people fall in love, families get bigger instead of smaller. But no matter what happens, I will always love you, and I will always be part of your life. Tommy seemed satisfied, but his question haunted Elena as she made her way to her room. What would happen if she and Owen ever acknowledged the feelings growing between them? She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice Owen waiting in the hallway until she nearly walked into him. Sorry, she gasped, steadying herself against the wall. I didn't see you. Owen was close enough that she could smell his cologne, could see the flecks of gold in his blue eyes. Elena, I wanted to ask you something. What is it? Owen seemed to be gathering courage. Next Saturday is Tommy's birthday. I usually throw him a party, just friends from school and their parents. But this year, I wondered if you would help me plan it. As co-host, not as the housekeeper. Elena's breath caught. Being co-host meant being presented as family, not staff. It meant crossing another line they'd been careful not to cross. Owen, I don't think... Please, Owen interrupted softly. Tommy adores you. You've become the most important person in his life. In both our lives, he added quietly. Elena looked into Owen's eyes and saw vulnerability, hope, and something that looked dangerously like love. Okay, she whispered. I'll help. Owen's smile was radiant. Thank you. They stood there for a moment longer, the air between them charged with possibility. Elena was acutely aware of how close Owen was, how easy it would be to reach out and touch him. Instead, she stepped back, her heart hammering. Good night, Owen. Good night, Elena. Tommy's 9th birthday party was everything a little boy could dream of. The penthouse had been transformed into a superhero wonderland, with Elena and Owen working together to create magic for their son. Their son. The thought hit Elena as she watched Owen helping Tommy blow out his candles. Somewhere along the way, they had become a family. Make a wish, Mio, Elena called out, her heart full as she watched Tommy's face glow in the candlelight. Tommy closed his eyes tight, whispered something under his breath, and blew out all 9 candles. The children and parents gathered around applauded, and Tommy beamed with pride. What did you wish for? Asked Jason, Tommy's best friend from school. Tommy glanced at Elena and Owen, a mischievous smile playing at his lips. I can't tell, or it won't come true. But I think it might happen anyway. As the party wound down and the last guests departed, Elena began cleaning up while Owen helped Tommy organize his gifts. She was gathering paper plates when she overheard a conversation that made her freeze. I wish Elena was really my mom, Tommy said quietly to Owen as they sorted through birthday gifts. I know Mama is my mom, but Elena feels like my real mom. The one who takes care of me and loves me and makes me feel safe. Owen's voice was gentle. Elena does love you very much, buddy. Does she love you too, Papa? Elena held her breath, waiting for Owen's response. What makes you ask that? Owen said carefully. Because you look at her the way Prince Eric looks at Ariel in the movie, and she smiles different when you come home. And sometimes I see you almost holding hands when you think I'm not looking. Elena's cheeks burned. Had they been so obvious? Tommy, Owen said softly, grown-up feelings are complicated. But do you love her? There was a long pause. Then Owen said, yes, I do love her. Elena's heart stopped. And I think she loves you too, Tommy continued matter-of-factly. So why don't you just get married? Then Elena could really be my mom forever, and we could be a real family. It's not that simple, son. Elena and I come from very different worlds. She might not want... Papa. Tommy interrupted with 8-year-old wisdom. Elena doesn't care about different worlds. She cares about us. Elena set down the paper plates with shaking hands. She should go to her room, pretend she hadn't heard any of this. But Owen's words, yes, I do love her, echoed in her mind like a prayer she'd been afraid to pray. She turned to find Owen standing in the doorway, watching her with an expression that confirmed he knew she'd heard everything. Tommy's getting ready for his bath, Owen said quietly. Elena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. They finished cleaning up in charged silence, both hyper-aware of every accidental touch, every shared glance. When the last dish was put away, Elena turned to escape to her room, but Owen caught her hand. Elena, wait! She turned to face him, her heart hammering so loud she was sure he could hear it. What Tommy said, Owen began. You don't have to explain, Elena interrupted. I understand. Every word was true, Owen said firmly. I love you, Elena. I love your kindness, your strength, the way you brought my son back to life. I love the way you hum while you cook, the way you tell stories, the way you make this house feel like home. I love you, and I don't care about different worlds or what anyone else thinks. Elena stared at him, tears streaming down her face. I love you too, she whispered. I tried not to, but I love you so much it scares me. Owen stepped closer, gently cupping her face in his hands. Don't be scared. We'll figure it out together. But what about... Owen silenced her with a kiss, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Elena felt like her whole world had shifted into focus. "Elena," Owen whispered against her forehead, "will you marry me? Will you be Tommy's mother and my wife and make this family complete?" Elena looked into his eyes, these beautiful blue eyes that had become her home, and saw their future stretching out before them. Tommy's laughter, quiet evenings together, building something real and lasting and true. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." From upstairs came Tommy's voice. "Did someone say yes? Because I think my birthday wish just came true." Elena and Owen laughed through their tears, holding each other in the kitchen where their love story had begun. They had found their happy ending in the most unexpected place, in the healing of a little boy's voice, in the courage to love across all boundaries, in the simple truth that family isn't about where you come from, but about who you choose to love. 6 months later, Elena Rodriguez became Elena Case in a ceremony in Central Park, with Tommy as ring bearer and their closest friends and family surrounding them. The little boy who had been silent for 3 years gave a speech at the reception about how love makes families and how sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places. And if you're wondering whether love really can conquer all, subscribe to our channel to discover more stories that prove sometimes the greatest miracles happen when we open our hearts to the people who need us most, and who, without us even knowing it, need us just as much. Owen Case learned that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or business empires. It's measured in the laughter of a child who found his voice, in the love of a woman who saw past his money to his heart, and in the family they built together from hope, healing, and the courage to love without limits.